Thank you for watching this short YouTube. And it's a heart reflection really, because sometimes when you're in the company of another or others who are always whinging and moaning and groaning about the price of fish, forgive me for the analogy, but this morning when I was in our local village buying some groceries for the community, I was chatting with the market stall sellers, and they were saying, gosh, we love your banter. And I said, why do you say that? They said, well, we have this woman and her husband, and they come every week, and all she does is whinge and moan and groan in front of all the other customers, and she's quite off-putting. I said, well, why don't you take her aside and have a quiet word with her and ask her, is she okay? Ask her if she's well. And if she should say, why do you ask that? Just say, well, are you aware that all you do is moan? Are you not happy? And he looked at me and he said, you want me to frighten the other customers away? But seriously, on a more practical note, we have had whingers and moaners and groaners in our community. We've not been spared from them. And after a while, you just pray they'll go away. Because what it does, it's such a negative energy. It really does drag you down. It brings me back to my nursing career, where I nursed for 38 years, and on some wards as a student nurse, the ward sisters were usually quite stern and stoic. But there was one ward where the sister was young and obviously liberated, and she was a joy. Oh, she was just an absolute joy. And everybody was happy because she was happy. And whatever she asked you to do, you do it, because she really made your 12 weeks training on her unit a joyful, liberating experience. And she always seen the good in you, even if a nurse or a student nurse was not up to the mark. She would make time to sit with that person and support them. And usually they did well. But then on another ward we went to, and she was an Irish sister, very old-fashioned. But my gosh, she was the most miserable person. And as they all said to me, if you tell her that you go to Mass on Sunday, she'll let you have extra time off. And a lot of people milked it. They really did, so that they could have a lie-in in bed. But she was not a nice lady. And when I look back, I realize now that she must have been disappointed in love somehow, because she never married, but she was so bitter. And we found that her bitterness was directed at those who were married with children. It's as if she always wanted a child but couldn't have one, so she took it out on everybody. And the poor patients, they were petrified of her. In fact, some of them who didn't come in with stress incontinence, they actually left the ward with stress incontinence, because when she came to do her morning ward round, they were literally shaking to death under the clothes. Is that what ministry is about? Where you frighten the daylights out of everybody you meet? I don't think so. But you know, a lot of people think that, oh, because you're a monk or a nun and you're in a community, it's all idyllic. Trust me, it's not. And we've only been going a few years, but I can tell you now, we have had an amazing experience in our community. And though we're an online community, thank God, but dealing with members of our community by email, by telephone, or even when they come here to the monastery on a retreat or to attend our monthly interfaith services, you feel a presence, and you usually feel sick in your stomach. And you wish they wouldn't come. Is that what ministry is all about? Is that the level that we have to drop to, where we have to say those unkind things about another. And yet we're challenged to embrace that person in love, which we do. But you always come away from your conversation with them and you always feel heavy-hearted. I know I have. There was one service that we had here, and Brother Rob, who was training at the time to be an interfaith minister, some of his group came here, and two of them, they looked us up and down as if we were something under their shoe, but they would not make eye contact, which I thought was strange, and I felt quite unnerved by it, so I let it go. But then towards the mid-afternoon, I thought, I'll put the kettle on and make them a cup of tea, and we'd done some home baking, and I thought I would just interject while they were having a relaxing period, and I just said, would anybody like a cup of tea and a bit of cake? And the look I got was enough to bury you alive. So I thought, right, I'm not going to stand for this. So I just said, could I have a word with you? She said, me? I said, yes. So she reluctantly came into the kitchen. I shut the door and I said, what's the matter with you? What do you mean, what's the matter with me? I'm fine. I said, well, you don't seem fine. I don't understand you. I said, well, it's as simple as ABC. 3 times now I've approached you in love, and 3 times you've dismissed me as if I'm something under your shoe. Is that your intention? I don't like you because you're wearing a habit and you represent the church. I said, stop a minute. Are you in training to be an interfaith minister? Yes, what's that got to do with it? Well, from my simple understanding, it means that you embrace all faiths. Well, certain ones. I said, no. As an interfaith minister, you embrace all faiths. And that means there's got to be a spirit of compassion, empathy, acceptance. But you're judging. So if someone came to you who was a Christian and asked you to give them a blessing or to bury their father or mother or to do a naming ceremony, would you dismiss them and say no because you don't believe? I said, for what it's worth, you're not going to listen to me anyway, but I will share it with you in love. If you're training to be a representative in service to God, to Yahweh, to Krishna, whoever, you have to come to it with an openness and a trust, and not sit in judgment, because otherwise you're as guilty as the next man for all the division that we have within the world because of religion. And it's people like you, forgive me, who's causing so much dissension. I'm not listening to this rubbish. And I just said, look, bless you. And I will pray for you. You needn't bother. It's you that needs the prayer. So I just felt sick. And I just blessed her and I released her. But I found others in our community who were nice to your face. And it was almost sycophantic. But behind your back, they were whinging and moaning, and you found them out because your sins inevitably find you out. And I certainly don't profess to be a paradigm of virtue. I have so many faults. I can be impatient. My perfectionism gets me down. But I have an expectation of others to be truthful. But when I find another out in a deliberate lie, I have to walk away from that person. I can't be associated with that person. I'll pray for them, I will love them, but I won't like them. And that might be seen as a judgment, but it's not. I don't hate them. I love them as a brother in service to God, but I don't like them. And I've even found it within my own family, where brothers and sisters find that they don't like what you're doing because you're not a true Catholic. So they dismiss you. And that's okay, because we're all here to do our little bit. So blessed are the whingers and the moaners, for they shall continue to whinge and moan, maybe because they're deeply unhappy. But you must have noticed yourself that when you've gone to a party or you've gone to a meeting and you know that there's a certain individual there that you really find it very hard to like, doesn't your stomach just churn? Don't you suddenly develop a pocket of wind and you want to be excused? And you know, life is full of such beautiful people. And I feel for them, because there was a time in my life when I was very miserable and unhappy, and very shirty and difficult, I'm sure. I know I must have been as a young novice monk, because I was so unhappy. So deeply unhappy. So why did I live there? I guess it was through fear of bringing shame on my family, because being Catholic, the whole idea of 100-fold was to have a son in the priesthood, a daughter in the nunnery, and a pig in the parlour. And of course in the 50s and 60s, to have a son or a daughter in the church was a great honour for the family. And when they left, it brought shame. That's changed now, thank God. But what do we do about the moaners and the groaners, the whingers, the kingdom wreckers, I call them? Well, I think we have a duty of care to reach out to them. We have a duty also to honouring our heart and to come to them in love. And what's coming to my mind now is we had an interfaith service here last year, and there was a lovely, lovely man that I thought would do really well in spreading the word about interfaith. But then I heard tittle-tattle, that some people found him quite obnoxious and difficult. In fact, one of our community had actually supported this person and found him extremely difficult and challenging. So, being in the kitchen behind the scenes, making the tea and cutting the pieces of cake ready for their break, or after the service that is, I could see immediately when I opened the door to say, "Oh, tea's ready," that there was a division in the room. There was a click. I could feel it. I could sense it. Because you can sense it, can't you? You can. When someone isn't speaking to another, you can feel it. And being a soul intuitive, one is receptive to such feelings. So I happened to see if everything was okay. And he came into the kitchen, this particular person, and he was full of self and ego, and went on and on and on. And I'm trying to speak with him and say, "How are you?" Didn't hear it. And I'm saying, "Well, how are you?" Didn't hear me. And I had to stop. I said, "Don't you listen?" "What do you mean?" I said, 3 times I've asked you, "How are you?" And you've just rabbited on like a parrot. "No, I haven't." I said, "Yes, you have." But this person's friend was there next to them. He said, "Have I?" He said, "Yes, you have." And I could see an argument bring. I said, "Look, are you okay?" "Why do you ask it?" "It's just that I've noticed in the room some people are avoiding you." "Why is that?" Is it something you need to say?" "Are you not happy coming here?" "Oh yes, but people don't listen." I said, "You don't give them chance because you never shut up." And then he took umbrage. He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you're so full of your own self-importance, telling everybody about the great things you do. But they never achieve much, do they? They're all dreams. The only way to succeed for God is to roll your sleeves up and get stuck in. Are you willing to help us?" "Oh no, my role is usually an administrative role. I've been trained for that." I said, "I was administrator and a nurse manager. But hey, my sleeves are rolled up. I'm doing the pots." You know, we're called to be a servant to the servants of God. that doesn't resonate. I said, oh, look, let's give you a hug. Don't you come near me. And I could immediately feel the sense of a difficult spirit. It was as if an entity was in this person. And the more I tried to reach him, the more uncomfortable he became. And what I found was the little symbol around my neck, the Teo symbol of peace. It was burning my chest, as much as to say, this man is so troubled, he needs healing. So I just quietly shut up and sent him love. Maybe that's what the whingers, the moaners, the groaners, and the unhappy souls need in this life. They need us to come into their presence and just project love into their being and trust. Do you think? Well, let's try it and see. And if it doesn't work, you can email me. Namaste.